Orwell and what he means to me. Political opinions are a great dividing force amongst all people at all times. In having one, you are compelled to share it, and upon sharing it, you are open to criticism and rebuke from people with opposing opinions. It seems logical to me to not have any opinion at all, and to stay neutral on any subject, and yet that in itself is a rebukable political opinion. What is that quote so keen on the subject? All it takes for bad men to succeed is for good men to do nothing. I would attribute this to Churchill, but in truth I do not know its original source, only that it is a phrase in the common circulation. But this is worth a Google. The internet claims that a 1770s pastor, Edmund Burke, wrote something that has since been butchered into that saying. So let's assume that it's not possible to not have a political opinion, as ignorance and inactivity are in essence just as political as action and awareness. Looking inward towards simplicity and clarity of the subject, let us nail down a definition for the word political. It is my understanding that a thing may be considered political when it is an action of mankind and has power over the choices and lifestyles of anyone else. The wind is a powerful force, but it is not political. The decision to allocate resources and men into building projects is political. The decision to sell any product or to consider any product unlawful to have or to sell is political. The decision to place any person in a manner in which they may say what shall be done or not is political. The decision to kill or not, to discredit or not, is political. In a reading of Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, a 6th century pay no attention to the man behind the curtain sort of book on power, political and influential, I found this simple and most handy tip on sorting out the slipperiness of tracing political power's roots back to any person. Hobbes said that the power is in the concept of veto. Simply put, one who may say no to a thing or person is the true leader. In the ancient Roman Republic, power was distributed to between two elected consuls by giving them a totem and a symbol of sovereignty called the fasces. Several powers came with the passing of the fasces between two elected officials, most importantly the power of the veto. The fasces would change hands after a period of about a month or so. This eventually contributed to the end of the Roman Republic, as the two officials, Caesar and Pompey, could fight and repeal laws laid in the past few weeks by the other one. Of leaders, there may be three types of governing bodies, Hobbes laid out. All have power, some have power, one has power. Logically, there is no other form of distribution of power than this. If one feels positively or negatively about a certain form of governance, there exists in our language two words for each. If we like the first opinion, all have power, we call it a democracy. If not, we call it anarchy. If we like the second way things work, some have power, we call it an aristocracy. If we do not like them, we call them an oligarchy. If one has power and we like them, we call it a monarchy. But if we do not like them, we call them a dictator. This is a continuation of Hobbes' logic, and I think it outlines one very important truth, that words are an accessory to forming any political opinion. Language is an instrument we shape with purpose. It does not just naturally grow from familiarity within any general community. It has been my experience that when having a conversation with people who have any strong political opinions, and we come upon a topic when suddenly things become argumentative, the best place to inhabit next is to start examining that person's definitions of political terms. Not only does this allow the conversation to avoid escalation, but I often find my definition and theirs to be off on one point or another. From there we may repair understandings and strike out on mutual terms towards adopting or abandoning opinions based on good reasoning. I believe this error in the simplicity of language around most political terms is because most of the world and phrases used commonly in political writings and media are designed to confuse clarity of points and to incite an emotional response on a subject. We may find several terms in our language that we may attribute to this effect. For example, collateral damage. This word is used to soften the mental picture of innocent people being killed in the service of some goal or other. You can understand why any alternative word risks creating an unfavorable movement in the consciousness of the ones acting in that situation. It is used in this form to keep operators from focus to task and off the horror. Another term is asset. This may be a human being, but he or she is now a piece of some current function, and so is hidden by a veil of fog in language that has been sharpened into tools of political goals. These are just examples of abstractions that are used by the military, but whole organizations can slip under the rug of abstractions as well. Just ask some neighbor to give you the definition of socialism, communism, or fascism. They may dredge up party slogans or political names, but the core values and methods are not readily available in conversation with most people. I assure you these cultural ignorances are intentional. Words like patriotic, freedom, democracy, terrorist, progressive, class, and science are also often used in a deceptive way that the underlying definitions become obscure and they become reduced to synonyms of good and bad. Orwell, a keen observer to the massive changes in cultural awareness of his day, tells me, in our time, political speech and writings are largely in the defense of the indefensible. Things like continuance of British rule in India, the Russian purges and deportations, the dropping of the atomic bomb on Japan, can indeed be defended, but only by arguments which are too brutal for most people to face, and which do not square with the professed aims of political parties. Thus, political language has to consist largely of euphemism, question begging, and sheer cloudy vagueness. Defenseless villages are bombed from the air, the inhabitants driven out into the countryside, the cattle machine gun, the huts set on fire with incendiary bullets. This is called pacification. Millions of peasants are robbed of their farms and sent trudging along the roads with no more than they can carry. This is called transfer of population or rectification of frontiers. People are imprisoned for years without trial, or shot in the back of the neck, or sent to die of scurvy in the Arctic lumber camps. This is called elimination of unreliable elements. Such phraseology is needed if one wants to name things without calling up mental pictures of them. Now, it is clear that the decline of a language must ultimately have political and economic cause. It is not due simply to the bad influence of this or that individual writer, but an effect can become a cause, reinforcing the original cause and producing the same effect in an intensified form, and so on indefinitely. A man may take to drink because he feels himself a failure, and then fail all the more completely because he drinks. No, not right now. Whatever's going on, you just ruined like 20 minutes.